What's going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the fantasy headliners and more training camp updates for you here this evening. And this one is a big one. There's a lot of updates. Maybe not anything as impactful as what we've seen with Alvin Kamara news or Leonard Fournette or any of these other things. But this one still has quite a bit of juicy details you're going to want to stay around for so you know what's going on in training camp right now. Don't forget, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're making that push. Our next goal, 90,000 subscribers. If you enjoy the content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stick around all season for some hashtag Hellafire content. Now let's jump right into it and talk about what we're hearing out of training camp right now. And first and foremost, maybe you didn't know this, maybe you do, roster cutdown is this weekend. NFL teams by Saturday at 4 p.m. have to cut their rosters from 80 all the way down to 53. Now keep in mind that with the collective bargaining agreement this year, the restructure that they've had with it, they have added some practice squad spots. And they've also allowed certain veterans to join the practice squad. In years past, depending on your tenure in the league, you're not allowed on the practice squad. This year, that's not going to matter. So you can make signings, bring guys in, and you can put them on the practice squad and have them there. So they've added extra spots in case there's any issues with COVID, needing to bring people up, whatever it may be, they have planned for that. Next news, and there's some interesting quotes out of Carolina today, and they are about Christian McCaffrey. Joe Brady, the new offensive coordinator in Carolina, was asked about Christian McCaffrey's workload last year. And the main quote from it was, "I don't think the amount he had last year was ridiculous." But after that, he goes on to say it's going to depend on how and when he gets those touches. Now, there have been a few people that have asked the interesting question. Christian McCaffrey signs the huge deal this offseason. He gets himself a nice little extension. And sometimes when that happens, people ask the question, is he going to keep up the same workload? Are they going to maybe utilize him a little bit differently because they don't want him getting hurt because they're so invested in him? As of right now, I don't see anything changing with his volume. But I think it's interesting hearing those quotes from him when he starts talking about we'll see when and how he gets those. Now, I don't think that the Panthers are going to be good enough here that they're going to get into any situations where they're up by a ton late in games and maybe they just pull McCaffrey off the field. That's not what I'm not worried about. I could see it the other way around, though. They get down by a lot later in games. Maybe they're down by 3 scores in the fourth, and they don't put McCaffrey out there that much, okay? The plans for this team lie in the future. 2020 is not going to be their year. They're not going to a Super Bowl. They're not winning any division championships. The defense isn't going to be nearly as good. So if they find themselves in those situations too often, that's when I could be worried about Christian McCaffrey not being on the field. So they're down by a lot, fourth quarter, and they say, hey, we got to get him off the field. So those touches, maybe they do end up staying the same. Maybe we see a little bit less. As of right now, I'm not too worried about it. It's just something to keep in mind. But if you drafted Christian McCaffrey, it doesn't matter. He's in your lineup every single week. Just thought the quote was interesting on what we might see this year. What about another guy that's going pretty high in drafts now? Even though we don't agree with it, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And coming from Andy Reid himself, he will be splitting touches with Darren Williams to start the season. Darren Williams has had a heck of a training camp from what we've heard so far. He's cemented himself firmly as the running back 2 and the backup. But per The Athletic and a conversation that happened with them and Andy Reid, Reid wants to bring Edwards-Helaire along slowly that first week. Now, maybe it's just the first week that he doesn't get a whole lot of touches. If you've spent a first-round pick on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm sorry, you've already done messed up, okay? But if you didn't and you drafted him somewhere, I don't know, maybe end of the second, third, whatever, even if it was before the Damian Williams opt-out and you got him even later than that, that's fine. Just keep in mind to begin the season, it's something that we even predicted with Damian Williams. It could happen with Darren Williams now. Clyde Edwards-Helaire could not have that great of a ceiling to start the season until they start to utilize him a little bit more, and a little bit more. So just keep that in mind as the season gets started. Deshaun Watson down in Houston, he's working on a new deal with the Texans. It sounds like this deal more than likely will fall around what Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson signed. Not anything like Patrick Mahomes. But the discussions are ongoing, and so far from what I've heard, they seem to be pretty confident that there's going to be a deal done. So kind of interesting that Deshaun Watson may choose to stick around in Houston. He's a year away from free agency. He can get himself into free agency and then maybe sign with a better team, or he can continue to hold out and maybe the Texans decide to trade him. Knowing Bill O'Brien, that is definitely not off the table. And who knows? Maybe they'll end up trading him for the next guy, Josh Gordon, right? Josh Gordon just re-signed with the Seahawks. I'm kidding, people. I'm kidding. I'm just making fun of Bill O'Brien, okay? Deshaun Watson is not getting traded to the Seahawks for Josh Gordon. It was a joke. Don't overreact. But Josh Gordon re-signing with the Seattle Seahawks, he's not going to be in the lineup right away. Okay, keep in mind, he still has to be reinstated, and he has applied for that reinstatement. It is a one-year deal, and as of right now, it sounds like there's a pretty good chance he's going to be reinstated. As the league has started to relax their thought process on testing and marijuana, that's the one area where Josh Gordon seemed to get himself in trouble. Yeah, he's had some, bigger issues when it comes to drugs. But with that being said, the marijuana part is kind of the thing that really kept this going. He's a guy that has smoked in the past. Not that there's anything wrong with it. And it's good that the league has relaxed that policy. Maybe this is good for him moving forward. Maybe it's something he doesn't need to stress about now. So we'll see what ends up happening with Josh Gordon. Right now, there's no fantasy relevance for me. I'm not super interested in him. I'm not worried about it right now. If you're drafting and you want to use your last pick on him just to throw him out there, you can if you want to, but they have a couple of tight ends in Disley and Olsen that they're going to use. Obviously, Lockett and Metcalf. There's probably not going to be a lot for Josh Gordon, especially beginning of the year as he gets himself back into shape. Cam Newton officially named the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. Maybe you weren't expecting that. I was, but if you weren't, you can go ahead and rest easy now. It is done, and he was also named team captain. So a guy that's been with this team only for several weeks now, already named team captain, officially named the starting quarterback, and Cam Newton's brought a little bit of an energy to the New England Patriots. After you lose Tom Brady, after you lose 6 defensive starters to opting out for the season and to free agency, things can look a little down in camp, but Cam Newton has come in and really brought in energy and kind of revitalized that team a little bit. And I think a lot of the guys that are around him are starting to to come onto that board to say that Cam Newton's going to be our leader moving forward, and this is the right guy for the job. So definitely like Cam Newton in this spot, and I fully believe that he is the right guy to be chosen to start at quarterback. James Conner, he's being removed from tackling drills right now. The main thing that we're looking at right here is, number one, they're trying to keep him fresh. Okay, so that's the main thing. They want to keep him fresh. They don't want him getting hurt. He's had some issues with injuries. He's in really good shape right now, but there's no reason getting him beat up here in the last week of practice. Also, they're getting a look at everyone. Right now, they're kind of taking a look at who's going to be that backup, who's going to be kind of a change of pace back. What do we have from some of these guys? They have Anthony McFarland, who we like a lot. They have Benny Snell. I brought him up on a different show because he's looked really good in camp. He's stronger. He's also lost some weight this year. And don't forget, they have Jalen Samuels as well. So right now, I think it's more about getting guys extra reps, getting them ready, and really figuring out who is going to be the guy to help Connor along the way. For Tampa Bay, in the news a lot the last 48 hours, and we're going to talk about Ronald Jones again for just a second, because per Arians, Rojo is still our guy. That's what he literally said today. Rojo is still our guy. Verbatim, in quotes. They apparently are still going to have Ronald Jones be the starter, and he's going to see a majority of work week 1. Now, in my breaking news video I did about Leonard Fournette, I warned some of you about this. I told you, okay? Be careful to start the season. It's going to be Ronald Jones to start. How long is it going to be Ronald Jones is another question. And that probably lies solely with Ronald Jones. The first time he misses a block, the first time that he drops a ball, the first time that he fumbles a ball away late in a game, or whatever it might be. Okay, the first time Ronald Jones screws up, he's going to be done, and he's not going to get a whole lot of touches after that. So really it depends on what Ronald Jones is doing. If Ronald Jones is performing well, we're going to see more of a split between him and Leonard Fournette. If he's not performing well, then we're going to see Leonard Fournette more and more and more and more over the first few weeks. But again, he's got to get there. He's got to get into the offense. He's got to get comfortable with it. He's got to get comfortable with the guys around him. So Ronald Jones is going to be the guy to start. But again, he controls his destiny at this point. And quite honestly, Arians is full of you know what. You see it there on the graphic, okay? Arians is definitely the one guy that when it comes to coach speak, you just throw all of it out the window. I mean, Jameis Winston was their guy. He was going to get a deal done. He was going to stick there. They looked at him as a franchise quarterback. They pumped up Ronald Jones all offseason. Look it. I get bringing in Leonard Fournette. When you have an opportunity to do a guy like that and you've bought all in for this year, you might as well do it. Okay, especially when you have Ronald Jones. I liked Ronald Jones this offseason. He was going in the 7th round, and he was a guy that was projected to be the running back 1 and had some upside. That's not the case anymore, okay? So we got to change our mind and flip it with that. Leonard Fournette is probably the guy at this point. Just don't spend a 1st or a 2nd round pick on him, okay? Don't get that caught up. 3rd round pick is the highest I will allow any of you to draft Leonard Fournette. If you go higher than that, I'm going to kick you off the channel. I'm kidding. I'm not going to kick you off the channel. I just have to mess with you guys a little bit, okay? Just don't take Ronald Jones before the 3rd. Or not Ronald Jones. Don't take Leonard Fournette before the 3rd round, okay? That's too spicy. What about moving over to wide receiver in Chicago now? Anthony Miller is having the best camp among players. That's what Matt Nagy is telling everybody right now. And this could be a breakout year for him. A strong end to training camp after a slow start. They said at the beginning of camp, he didn't look right. He looked slow. He wasn't really developing in the plays. But as the weeks have gone on, he's got stronger. And Matt Nagy is now saying that Anthony Miller has had the best camp of any player there. So keep an eye on him. The 3rd-year wide receiver, looking to have that breakout year playing in the slot. He could be a guy that could help out Nick Foles or Mitchell Trubisky whenever they make up their minds and decide to make that decision. Mohamed Sanu, released by the Patriots last night. And it sounds like he was released for money reasons, okay? It wasn't necessarily his talent or how his camp was going, because apparently camp was going good. He was having a connection with Cam Newton, but this really leaves the Patriots wide receivers thin and unproven. You've got Julian Edelman, but then after that, what do you got there, people? Jacoby Myers? N'Keal Harry? I mean, none of these guys have really done anything. So for Mohamed Sanu to be cut, it was a little bit surprising, but it may have been they cut him because they were trying to get the money off the books to get Leonard Fournette. And who knows, now that they didn't get him, maybe they do end up bringing back Mohamed Sanu. Maybe he ends up falling with another team. We'll wait and see what happens over the next couple of weeks. He was having a good camp, though. Really hate to see him cut at this point in time. The Jaguars running backs down in Jacksonville, Doug Marrone likes their running back depth. He said it right after they released Leonard Fournette. We like the guys that we have here. And he singled out Devin Ozigbo and James Robinson as 3-down backs. Now, if you're a Patreon member, I wrote about James Robinson months ago as a guy to keep an eye on this season and in the future. So, 100% need to be paying attention to these guys. I have already talked about Chris Thompson. Okay, Chris Thompson is going to be a 3rd-down back. He's going to be a guy that's going to get a ton of looks catching the ball, okay? He's not going to win you any leagues, but he's going to be a good flex fill-in for when you have, or a bye week fill-in in your flex for when you play in PPR leagues, maybe even half PPR leagues. But everyone jumping on the Raquel Armstead bandwagon right now as the next guy up, it might not last that long. So just keep that in mind. James Robinson was an undrafted free agent, but he is a freak athlete. He can play all 3 downs, and on top of that, he has some huge college production. He just comes from Eastern Illinois, a small school. So he's kind of looked down upon because of that. Don't let that happen. Keep him on your radar. What about some injury updates? A lot of injury updates right now. Alvin Kamara. Just to clarify, in one of our last updates, we talked about Alvin Kamara getting that epidural. Well, it came out the next day that it was an SI joint injection, not an epidural. Talked to Dr. Ethan Turner, and he said, that's pretty standard practice at this point, especially if you're having even a little bit of pain, some nagging pain. He's not worried about it. This completely changes everything. We're leaving Alvin Kamara towards the top of our running backs. I've got him back at running back 4 at this point, and that's where I'm leaving him. Tyreek Hill, he's still not practicing. The hamstring's bothering him. He's out on the field doing work, but he's not really been practicing or doing any game-type situations right now. Marquise Brown is feeling 100%. That foot last year, keep in mind, he broke that foot his last game at Oklahoma. He was drafted and he played with pins in his foot last year. Those pins are now gone. He had those pins removed earlier in the offseason and now he's 100%. I did a breakout or bust video about Marquise Brown earlier in the offseason, and I said that this was a guy to be paying attention to, and I even broke down the numbers that what he would need to get to wide receiver 1 status. Now, is that going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. But honestly, it's not that far out of reach either. So keep an eye on Marquise Brown. He's going pretty late in drafts. You can get a good deal on him. Amari Cooper, he's been limited or a non-participant in several of the last practices. The reasons, right, kind of unknown. People have seen him on the side working out. He's been doing some things with trainers, but no one really knows why. But I will say this. No one with the Cowboys seems to be concerned. Everyone's saying he's going to be ready to go for week 1, and that's possible. But towards the end of last season, he did deal with some issues, okay? He had some foot issues. So hopefully those are not flaring up again. If they are, then I'm going to need to reevaluate my Amari Cooper stance. But as of right now, I'm not changing it. They're just keeping him healthy. I'm absolutely okay with that. No worries for me on Amari Cooper. If we do find something more serious is happening, we'll talk about it more then. More injury updates. Paris Campbell, he's been cleared to practice after his car accident in which he went into the concussion protocol. He's done. He's been cleared. He's back to practice. Cooper Kupp is going to be 100% by week 1. His ankle flare-up is just fine now. He's going to get back on the field, and he's going to be out there for week 1. So if you drafted Cooper Kupp, no worries. You'll see him out there soon. Damian Harris, he's going to be out a few weeks now. We're finding out he's got a hand injury. The Patriots are going to mess around and make James White a running back 1 this year in PPR leagues. I mean, Damian Harris is done. Sony Michel has been, hurt this offseason. They haven't brought anyone else in at this point. Keep an eye on James White. James White, for me, was a league winner a couple of months ago. For months now, I've been telling you that James White was an extremely attractive option here this season. Hopefully you've been listening because it keeps getting, the situation keeps becoming more and more fluent for him to produce those bigger numbers. And Deebo Samuel, he is back to running 100%, but there is still a really good possibility he's going to miss week 1 with that foot injury, okay? He could be back. Talk to Dr. Ethan Turner. He's saying at this point he'd be surprised. Week 1, probably not going to happen. Week 2, probably not going to happen. Week 3 is kind of that target date that they're looking at right now to get him back. There you have it, Headliner Nation, hitting you with a ton of updates tonight. Hopefully you're enjoying these videos. Do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're driving to 100,000 subscribers, but next stop, 90,000. That's coming up soon. Help us hit that goal by hitting the subscribe button and leave me a comment below. Any questions about anyone I brought up, anyone else in training camp that you've heard something about but maybe not in a while, leave some comments down below. Headliner Nation, appreciate you all. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.